Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome to another edition of a special series we have. It's CEOs in Sales Technology. And I have the man of the hour, Mr. Bob Moore, who is the CEO of Crossbeam and just released a new book, Ecosystem Led Growth, which landed in my box. Amazing book. And great to have you on the show, Bob.
Great to be here. My pleasure, and have been excited to chat.
Yeah, I mean, I dove into this. This is so interesting. So, if people don't know what we're talking about with eco-led system, dude, okay, ecosystem-led growth.
Yeah.
That's a mouthful. What are we talking about from a definitional perspective, and how'd you get into this?
Yeah. So ecosystem-led growth is actually a really simple concept. It's just the idea that you can use the data and relationships from your partner ecosystem as the primary way for your company to attract and convert and grow your customers. So if you basically are working with other companies outside of your own company's walls, and that's a major driver of how you grow an efficient, scalable business, then you are an ecosystem-led growth company. And how to do that extremely well, and why it is that now is probably the best time ever to run that playbook is what the book is all about.
Got it. Okay. So, I specific question for you, but if we're talking about partnerships, there's a lot of different definitions for what a
Oh yeah.
partnership is. For me, people look at Tenbound and they go, "Oh, you're working with all these clients. You have this great client list. You're in with all these great people. Let me call all of your clients on your behalf, and then I'll give you, 10% if I can land any deals." And I go, huh. Okay, so your ACV is $5,000. Wow. Okay. So, anyways, there's some issues with how people are doing partnerships, but when you think about partnerships, how do you define it?
Yeah. So I'll start just by validating what you're saying, which is that partnerships as a word, as a buzzword, as a piece of jargon is both a very, very overloaded term in that it means a whole lot of things out there in the world. And it's been around forever. So it's had the ability to accumulate and aggregate those rogue definitions throughout history. And it's also something that's really fraught with, frankly, a kind of a default negative reputation in the minds of most go-to-market leaders. And for what you could argue is good reason, right? Throughout most of history, the idea of the practice of partnerships is one where there is an undeniable theoretical value that exists in the work, but it's been extremely hard to measure that value, to create repeatability and predictability in that value. And because of that, a lot of people that have been in sales roles and sales leadership roles, they've had experiences with partnership teams where it feels like, frankly, the partner team is kind of messing around in their deals and they don't always necessarily know why, or the partner team is taking credit for some piece of progress that they may not feel is always due. And that's really unfortunate because the reality is that there's gold in them hills, and that the inherent value that is and can be unlocked by those partner teams is very, very vast. The question is just how you actually implement the benefits of what comes out of your partner ecosystem. And that is the key to doing ecosystem-led growth, right? And frankly, why we use the term ecosystem-led growth rather than partner-led growth, because the word partner in and of itself, I think, brings up some scar tissue for a lot of folks. And this is a very, very different thing in that it's not about how to make your partner team great. It's about how to make your go-to-market team great. It's about how to make your business great just by leveraging the things that your partnership team generates by default by existing. So you asked about the actual definition of partner. We keep it really simple in the book. If there's an external company that's outside your own company's walls where you win together, that's a partner. It can be a technology partner with a integration between your products. It can be a service partner who helps deliver or support or resell your products. It can be a joint venture or strategic partner where you're doing market making or category creation, or kind of messaging strategy together. And there's a whole laundry list of different partnership types that exist. Those are all partners, and the ambiguous term partner is a good enough umbrella term to encapsulate them all. The question then is just like, okay, you've got this partnership, you're doing this work. How do you then do something horizontal that impacts your entire business and cuts across departments and leaves the partnership team and goes into the boardroom and goes into the CEO's office, goes into the sales meetings and actually drives results.
Yeah. And just one more story. I'm having a flashback now when I was in the corporate world, and we would have a sales meeting for the sales management meeting every Monday at 7 a.m. And the partnership guy would come in, and we were selling a technology to VARs and MSPs, and the partnership guy would come in and literally say he was working on one partnership for like 3 years. And his whole spiel was, well, I talked to Bob, I talked to Steve, we're doing this, we're doing that. And it's like, dude, you have been working on this for 3 freaking years and we've made zero progress. And I don't know if it was him or the partnership world, but I never understood it, because if you're in direct sales, it's like, do. You're closing deals left and right, and you have updates for the management meeting. If you're in the partnership world, for me, it's a slow burn. And then all of a sudden, after 3 years, that's a long time. I don't know how long it took. After several years, it's like we entered into the bloodstream of this partnership network, and now we're making millions and tens of millions based on this partnership that we did. So I don't know where I'm going with that, but that was my experience of looking at this world from the outside.
Yeah, I think that's not an unusual assessment, right? And I think that's part of what's kind of a core requirement to go into this mentality of like, hey, let's look at this problem with fresh eyes. Is these very specific things that you call out are really a byproduct of not having the kind of consistency in data and consistency in playbooks that now exists that allows us to do these things well. And I can detail that out a little more, right? Like rewind the clock 10 years, maybe even 5 years. And I think we're still in a world where most partner teams are operating with only half of the information that they need at any given time. Like if you want to actually influence or encourage the behavior of a go-to-market organization to whether it's look at a certain account as something that is incredibly well qualified because of the ecosystem, or customizing messaging or sequencing, or enlisting a partner to try to win a deal. How do you go about doing that? Well, one of the things you have to do is be able to answer the question with all your partners. Hey, partner, do we have any customers in common? And if so, who are they? Or maybe more importantly, are my sales reps currently trying to sell into anybody who's already your customer or who your team is trying to sell into right now? And all these questions require drawing a Venn diagram between your data set and the data set of that partner. But math is working against you. Like there's a fundamental blocker there, because you mathematically cannot draw a Venn diagram between two data sets unless you have all of the data from both of the data sets. So what you're really saying is, hey, partner, give me your whole customer list, or hey, partner, give me access to your whole sales pipeline. And no one's ever willing to do that in either direction. And that creates this very challenging data standoff that exists between partner companies. It's almost like the prisoner's dilemma problem from game theory, right? Like neither side is going to flinch, and you end up acting selfishly, even though it's not in the interest of the partnership. And that data standoff has left partner teams really, really, really defanged, and without the tools that they need to measure and scale and kind of programatize the work that they do through a go-to-market lens forever. And the best way to get nods out of a group of people when you tell them this story is to say, the old way of doing this is this process known as account mapping, where companies basically email spreadsheets back and forth of like leads, opportunities, customers, where they have some reason to believe that maybe this subset of data might be relevant to this partner. And they do it on a quarterly or on an annual basis just to get some kind of alignment around how their territories might line up or where there might be opportunities. And that process stinks. It's everywhere. It's extremely prevalent. Any company worth their weight, whether they're kind of a channel-driven company or not, has some kind of account mapping practice within their partner ecosystem. The data is instantly stale. The data is incomplete and missing key information. The ability to match accounts even is kind of fraught with all kinds of technical problems, and it's a massive security and privacy and governance leak to put the icing on the cake. So what's different now is that companies like Crossbeam over the course of the last 5 years have come into the fray and become pretty much universally adopted across companies, particularly in the technology industry. There's upwards of 20,000 companies now on the Crossbeam network. And what Crossbeam does is it sits in the middle, almost like an escrow service for data that solves for that prisoner's dilemma problem and allows people to connect with partners and get the answers to those data-driven questions without needing to share the entire underlying data set. So you can do account mapping at scale in real time so that the instant you have a close partner that closes a new deal, the sales rep that's selling into that company on your side can know about that. The instant something enters into your sales pipeline, your sales rep who owns it can get a full profile of where and how that account sits within all the relationships that exist within your ecosystem. These are things that help you qualify accounts. They help you forecast your likelihood of winning. They help you personalize the messaging that you use to win those accounts. They help you decide when it's worth bringing a partner in versus not to try and push an account over the line or reinforce the value proposition or layer on some service offerings on top of how you're selling that account. They basically give you like a little window you can look into in your CRM system to peek into the CRMs of all the other companies out there who win together with you, all those companies who are your partners. And that is an incredible superpower. And when you introduce that new data layer that now exists, that wasn't there 5 years ago, you get to rewrite the entire thing. And all of the things that made partnerships less compelling, less powerful over the course of the last 100 years that have kind of led to this challenged reputation that partners has in a lot of people's heads are getting thrown out the window. You don't need an army of partnership people kind of inserting themselves manually into deals ad hoc in order to try to advance or create new business. What you can do is leverage your partner team to kind of be the glue that holds this data ecosystem together, and then arm your sellers, your leadership, your sales management, your marketing teams, your go-to-market organization as a whole with this incredibly powerful, incredibly proprietary second-party data that's flowing in on a daily basis in order to inform how to run your business. And it's never been in this state before, and it's all about the way that the kind of the data revolution has unlocked these new motions, and it's a really, really big deal in the companies who have figured it out.
Oh my God. Wow. The technology is unbelievable. And I'm thinking if you're some engineer somewhere at Stanford and you're thinking, what kind of company should I start? Look for the spreadsheets. If people are
Yeah.
emailing spreadsheets back together, you could unlock, if you think about it, you're unlocking billions of dollars in value just by, first integrating all these data sets and then going to market with this. And now you've got the ecosystem-led growth movement in that you're introducing this whole new go-to-market, motion to the, that people can use.
Yeah, it all ties
So
together,
powerful.
right? These are all things that kind of dovetail. It's no coincidence that that ecosystem-led growth book just showed up today on the USA Today National Bestseller list, which we're super excited about, and we're definitely not expecting to see. It's really thrilling. And I think, frankly, if we'd written that book 3 years ago, that never would have happened. And maybe 3 years from now, it would have like blended into the crowd of like all the people talking about this. But there's this really compelling why now. This data and this technology has been unlocked. Enough people are noticing and talking about it that there's real market pull for it. And frankly, the other stuff that people used to grow just isn't as attractive anymore, right? We can talk about that if you want, but a lot of the old playbooks from the past decade, for various reasons, have started falling off the map in terms of performance. And ELG is just kind of like a phoenix that rises from those ashes, right? And companies are using to pull their businesses forward.
Oh my God. I call it antibiotic resistance, to the whole, not to diss it, but like the predictable revenue model. It's time to, move out of that paradigm. And it's been time for several years, and there's different movements that have come up, to address that. And I think if go-to-market leaders are not looking at the ecosystem-led growth as one of those levers, they're really missing out. One question I have for you, Bob, is When you're running a deal and you're in the direct sales motion,
Yeah.
it's almost like you're carrying this really fragile egg, and
Yeah.
you want it to be perfect, and you hesitate to bring in anybody who might mess it up, and it's like if you're sharing data, structured data, it's anonymous, and you're very careful with the data, but you don't want some partner guy to come in and screw up your deal. How do you address that to make sure that you don't drop the egg?
Yeah. So there's so much there. And it is the question, right? I'll say a couple of things to answer that. One of them is, one of the beautiful things about platforms like Crossbeam is that there's just an incredibly immense amount of control that you and your company can exhibit over who sees what, when, and under what circumstances. Crossbeam is not a co-op where everybody just throws all their data in and then everybody else gets to see it. It's also not a marketplace where you're connecting with like random other companies who are willing to, horse trade data or pay for your data. You can think of it almost more like LinkedIn for data, right? Like the only companies that you are going to be connecting with are ones where both sides have specifically opted in to being a partner on the platform. And even then, both sides get to decide what makes it through to the other end. And it doesn't even have to match. Your partner might be sharing opportunity level data with you. You might not share that back with them. You might only share information about the total count of how many opportunities there are, or just about companies after they become customers, or maybe the name of the company, but not the rep who's working on it, or not the stage of the deal. You can individually customize and control that on a partner by partner basis. And it makes it really, really powerful where if there are individual deals or certain situations where you want to protect your data list, you can absolutely do it. And you can do that in a very fine-grained way. Now, even if data does make it to the other side, this is where, in my opinion, the most profound difference between ELG and like classic partner motions comes into play, which is if you are a sales rep who's trying to very carefully protect that egg, but you want to also be a beneficiary of all the things that ELG brings to the table, you don't have to tell anybody. You don't have to call your partner team and say, hey, FYI, I'm going to use some ELG insights here. You don't have to go to the partner and say, hey, FYI, I could use your help. The playbooks here are not all ones where you need to go and call some other person and bring them in on your deal, internal or external. Many of the playbooks here are about signal, intent, and context. So ELG, you can look at it as just a better version of a lot of things that you probably use in your day-to-day job as a seller, like data enrichment platforms, folks that kind of expand upon who are the accounts and the titles and contacts, right, that we know at this company. What gives us a signal about who might be willing to be a hand raiser or who might be active in the market doing buying right now. Or even more importantly, what do we know about what other technologies and services this company I'm trying to sell to are already using or have recently decided to use, so that I can actually customize the way that I present, the way that I message, the way that I position in a way that's going to make it feel like we are a part of that stack, and we are a very logical part of that ecosystem. Mark Andreessen said 15 years ago, software is eating the world. And I believe in that, and I subscribe to it in such a huge way. And in recent years, the yes and on top of that is, it almost feels like ecosystems have been eating software. And what I mean by that is that buying behaviors have changed such that people are more likely to buy products based on what other products they integrate well with or play nicely with or are already being used inside their companies that kind of fit as part of a stack, as they are to buy a product based on, the quality of the or clunkiness of the user experience or how much they like the sales rep who was selling it to them. People buy software in ecosystems now. And because of that, sellers should be positioning their software vis-a-vis the ecosystem that matters most to the buyer. And ELG data is the only data that actually allows you to do that. So again, like you can carry your egg and you can be very protective of it. And you can operate in your own world and self-serve and consume this context and this data and just position yourself in a way where you're going to perform better and treat your egg better without needing someone else to come in and muck around with it in some way. Hopefully that makes sense.
And don't give me more eggs and don't break mine.
Yeah.
That's the sales, right?
That's the other. Tell you what, I'll put one little tail on that, which is, yes, you're right. when a deal is going well and it's your big deal for the quarter and you think you've got this thing and you're a sales rep, you are right. You want to coddle that egg. You want to hold it closely. You don't want anybody messing with it. But I will ask the corollary, which is, what about the 80 other deals sitting in your book of business that have gone quiet on you, where they've stopped responding, where the stakeholder left and went to another company, where they, just totally started ghosting you and didn't show up for that last sales call? What about those? Those aren't ones that you're holding close. Those, in a lot of cases, are ones where you might actually be willing to take on some risk in order to potentially reactivate it or bring it back into, your list of likely, high probability deals for the quarter. And those, you open up a whole other universe of playbooks, right? Like, if you're not holding it that closely, but it's in the long tail of your book of business, you might be willing to run that magnet over top of it and see what needles in the haystack pop up where a partner could help you, where a back channel reference or intelligence or something might be useful. And you might actually want to enlist that person to kind of come in because you've lost the thread and you want to get it back to life. So, that profile of account is way more prevalent in every sales rep's book of business than the egg that they're cradling. And the question is, where do you want to apply it, and what's the outcome that you want to drive?
Yes. Well, thanks. I like the analogy. We took it. It's definitely that feeling of, oh my gosh, I don't want to mess this up. And the question is, that salespeople have a lot of tools now that they're using, and there's so many features and there's so much functionality presented here. And there's like, 80 eggs that might, mature at some point that you're not even thinking about in your pipeline. How do you make sure that your average salesperson that has access to this knows how to utilize it correctly and get the maximum value from the ecosystem?
Yeah, this is where it takes a village in some ways. There's a great chapter in the book that you'll get to. A guy named Dave Goldstein who runs growth ecosystems at Braze, which is a fantastic publicly traded company in the kind of sales and marketing technology space. Dave has this paradigm that he calls the ELG tetrahedron. He's a volunteer firefighter on the weekends, and there's this thing called the fire tetrahedron, which is, if you're a firefighter, in order for fire to exist, you need a fuel source, you need heat, you need oxygen, and you need some kind of like spark, right? Some kind of incendiary event, and then you end up with fire. Well, he says in the same way, you need a tetrahedron like that in order to have ELG work, right? And it's not just that you have a partner ecosystem, it's that you've got RevOps involved, it's that you've got sales leadership involved, it's that you've actually trained the sellers specifically, and you've got that network. And he kind of walks through a lot of their approach to doing that at Braze and how they've made it effective. That ends up really being true. The big domino in my book, when people ask me this, like, what's the one thing that I can do? To me, it's actually about sales managers and sales leaders and the way in which they conduct pipeline reviews. Because for every sales rep that they sit down with and kind of go through, what's your pipe look like for this quarter and kind of how are we tracking on these various deals? If those sales managers have a mindset where they can ask on every deal, how does this prospect fit into the fabric of the ecosystem? Which of our partners are they working with? What other products are they using? Have we leveraged that to our advantage, whether it's by enlisting a partner or just by using that data and that knowledge to pitch and position differently, or frankly, pick different companies to sell to? That context constantly being reinforced in the deal reviews will lead to behavioral changes in the actual reps themselves. But if you just try to go directly to the reps and let them self-serve, you'll get what you always get with new technology, which is the top 10 or 20% of reps absolutely love it and crush their quotas using it. But the rest of them have too many tools to log into and too many things to think about and kind of won't self-serve their way into being effective with it. But if you get in at the leadership and the management levels, you can kind of instill through reinforcement learning the right behaviors. So I really do like to focus on, the upside version of that story, the leverage that shows up to the business, and that sales manager level is really the sweet spot in my book. But it takes a village, right? There's a lot of those.
Yeah. And do you have some kind of like university or something that the managers are definitely a great manager is the leverage point for all sorts of training, and not only software, but the soft skills for salespeople.
Yeah.
The meaty middle, the top 10%, they're good. They're just like lone wolves just crushing it out there. But there's the meaty middle that were,
Yeah.
like anthropology majors at Cal State, and they got into sales, and they're just like, okay. And I'm not dissing them because that was me. That was a long time ago. But that they need help. They need help. They need training, and they need to be able to utilize all these amazing tools that they have at their
Yeah.
disposal.
Totally. So
Yeah.
the direct answer to your question is yes. We have a thing called Crossbeam Academy, which is our own product certification program, which has different courseware available based on your role and also your kind of seniority in terms of whether you're an admin on the account or whether you're someone that's kind of using it day to day. We actually are just in the process of launching the ELG certification through the Crossbeam Academy. So in addition to learning how to use Crossbeam proficiently, you can actually become certified on ecosystem-led growth as a concept. And the ELG certification is basically using the book that you're holding as a textbook and kind of learning the definitions and lessons and best practices and playbooks that come out of that book. If you do that well, you can, take the assessment and get certified on the ELG front. So that's the latest and greatest on that front. And all that is free. You can access it as long as you can log into Crossbeam. You can go to the Academy and it automatically logs you in, and you can get right into the courseware and the course tracks. We will do some live certifications at the ELGCon Summit, which is happening on May 15th and 16th in Austin, Texas this year. If anybody wants to check that out, limited tickets, but there are some still available. And yeah, generally, and Crossbeam itself is free to sign up for. So free to get into Crossbeam and then free to hop over to the Academy if you want to do that asynchronously.
Amazing opportunity. And you'll see again, like the top 10%, they'll get the certification, they'll crush it, they'll come out to Austin, and they'll have another certification that they can use to hit their number.
Yeah.
Right. And maybe we got to push the other guys. And it's interesting. Just a quick story. This is like 10 years ago. I was looking for a job, and I went into this little tiny company that was in this crappy building south of Market in San Francisco, and pitched for the job, and it was called App Boy. I don't know if you know where I'm going. So
I know where this is going, but I'll let you finish. Yeah.
I tell my mentor, I'm talking to this company called App Boy, and he's like, dude, that is the stupidest fucking name I've ever heard. You cannot work at a company called App Boy. And then I didn't get the job anyways, and then they went on to become Braze. Now everybody made millions and millions of dollars. So that's my story. And the fact I know what a tetrahedron is. So if you don't out there, if you're listening, you got to get the book. A tetrahedron is a very powerful visual tool for understanding. I like that fire example too. That was interesting. So this is great. So Bob, you mentioned it. We can sign up for Crossbeam right now. You're doing the certification, and then we can go out to Austin and meet, the key players, I think, in the ecosystem-led growth movement.
Very true. Yeah, that's it's going to be an awesome conference. I'll be there personally, and we're going to have some real heavy hitter speakers. So if you just Google for ELG conference or go to crossbeam.com let's see here, /ELG-conference. That'll get you there.
Yep. And I think this guy, I can't remember his name now, but he was biz dev and bow ties, and he works at Salesforce.
Oh yeah, I know this guy.
You know that guy?
Richard. Oh man, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm embarrassed that I forgot his name because we worked with him a lot in the early days. He is awesome. I'll remember it by the time we're done talking here. Yeah.
He should come out and speak. He's like an encyclopedic knowledge of this, and I just looked at his profile yesterday. I was trying to find somebody that worked at Crossbeam. I'm not connected to anybody. I'm not connected to you, so we got to connect on LinkedIn. And he was the only guy. He's like a advisor or something from
he's
10
a really
years
advisor
ago
to the business. Yeah.
So anyways, small world. Bob, thank you so much for coming on the show. Everybody, grab the book. I'll put a link in the show notes, and I'll see you in Austin.
Fantastic. Looking forward to it. And thanks as always for the great chat.
Got it.